let's say we go back to the 1950s, right, where lots of those things were more prevalent.
Yeah.
And they said, but we've been doing this for a long time. We have hundreds of years. Do you think that's a moral justification, doing something for a long time to continue tomorrow when you don't need to?
I personally, I think don't fix it if it ain't wrong.
So homophobia, racism, misogyny isn't wrong?
That is wrong, yes. I think oppressing people because who they love, how they look, what gender they are is
or what
extremely
species they are.
wrong. Species they are. Look,
Okay, yeah. So what do you think about the statement, you should be vegan?
personally, I think like veganism in itself is a fundamentally really like good idea. I think like harming animals in itself is quite bad. But I do think that a bunch of factors come into play when like telling people to be vegan. I think personally, I don't think I have the financial capabilities of being vegan. I don't think I can get enough nutrients at a cheap price.
So what if I told you Oxford University did a study where they looked at the cost of all different diets, and actually vegan diets came out the cheapest. So probably if you're focusing on like vegan foods in the supermarket that are like vegan ice cream or vegan steaks, they might be expensive, but all the cheapest foods in the supermarket, lentils, beans, rice, some of the poorest communities in the world, they're predominantly plant-based. Actually, it's the people who are consuming the most amount of animal products who actually accumulate the most wealth. So it would show you the other way around. And I would also say like financial reasons is not really a justification to exploit someone.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I also do think, from what I've read here, a study by St. Louis has provided me with the information that a vegan diet but a study that, sorry, my English is quite bad, but
It's okay.
People who solely have a vegan diet have experienced hair loss, weak bones, muscle wasting, skin rashes, hypothyroidism, and anemia.
I mean, there are probably tens of thousands of studies out there. A lot of them you have to look at like who's funding those studies. So
Yeah.
the meat industry, the egg industry, the dairy industry, they like to fund a lot of these, I would call like bro science type studies. What I think is more reliable is to look at what the nutrition bodies say. So nutrition bodies, when they make a decision, like in the UK we have British Dietetic Association, in America it's the American Academy of Dietetics, I think. And basically they will not look at just one study like you've seen. They will look at thousands of studies before they make a statement.
Yeah.
So the British Dietetic Association say that vegan diets are healthy and nutritious for all stages of life, including children, lactation, including adults. The same goes in the US, and they even go one step further and say it can be healthy for avoiding certain types of diseases, and we know those are heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. So whilst you can pull up like one study, like I think if we were talking about any issue, it's possible to pull up one study that says something else. I think what's more reliable is if you look at the hierarchy of evidence, if you know science, the hierarchy of evidence, like the lowest is like anecdotal, when you can say, oh, my uncle did this and he got sick. And then we go up to like maybe one study, and you could, like you showed on your phone. And then at the top we have things like peer reviewed or meta-analysis. And so those are when they're looking at like lots of studies and try to find patterns. So I would say they were more reliable.
But I actually have a question for you. Don't you think the lack of calcium in a vegan diet will lead to, weaker bones, and then will lead to other problems?
Well, first you have to validate your statement that you would have a lack of calcium. I can show you here. So these are all different plant-based sources of calcium. So you can get calcium from sesame seeds, soybeans, kale, nuts, spinach, okra, broccoli, dried figs, and many more plants. I'd also remind you that maybe a lot of people think, we need to take the breast milk of a cow to get calcium. But if you think about it, all the other mammals in the animal kingdom, they also need strong bones, like a rhino or like any animal a tiger, right? They're not taking another species, forcing them to get pregnant, taking their babies away, and then taking that breast milk in order to get calcium.
Yeah.
That's something that humans are doing, but it's certainly not necessary. And on top of that, all of those other animals, they need strong bones, they need strong teeth, right?
Yeah.
So there is no evidence to say that we need to eat dairy in order to get calcium.
Yeah.
This is propaganda by the industry.
I see. Well, personally, I grew up on a farm up in Boden, Sweden. And I've actually tried, not vegan diet, but I've tried a vegetarian diet, and I found it really hard. And I think it's due to me being hardwired as a child to like meat. Because if you feed a child only a vegan diet, I don't think they'd like meat that much, right? So personally, I think, I could probably couldn't ever be vegan due to me being hardwired as a child.
I don't think it's about liking meat. So I think there's a misunderstanding about what veganism means. So back when I wasn't vegan, right, I would eat, I don't know, chicken burgers and bacon and all of these foods, right?
Yeah.
And when I became vegan, it wasn't like I stopped liking bacon. It's just that I realized, like, in order to get bacon, you have to force pigs into gas chambers. And I don't like doing that to pigs, right? So it's not about like, oh, because you like the taste of those products a lot. I think it's more about maybe you haven't encountered so much of what happens to these animals, and maybe if you do and you witness like what happens to them, I can show you some videos maybe if that would help. Okay. So this is about the pig industry. So this is also in Sweden. So do you know how pigs are slaughtered in Sweden?
Aren't they gassed to death?
Yeah, so they're put into gas chambers. Yeah. So how does this make you feel?
Well, of course, it's unfortunate to see. I don't think, I wouldn't want to be in a situation like this gas. It kind of reminds me of the Holocaust. But I think that, you know, animals kill each other, so why can't we kill animals?
Okay, so dolphins also rape each other, and bears kill their rivals' cubs. So if you were sitting next to somebody who supported rape or supported child killing, and they stood up in court and they said, hey, look, the rapist said, oh, look, the dolphins for sex, why can't I? Or the child killer says, hey, look, bears kill their rivals' cubs, why can't I? Do you think that using examples of what wild animals do as a benchmark for human behavior is a valid justification?
I think using extreme arguments like that is quite like not really relevant to the situation. I mean, I said animals kill other animals. It's natural selection. Tigers kill antelopes because they have to.
Yeah, it's also, well, okay, have to is interesting, but let's get back to what they do, right? So you're right, like when the lion kills the zebra, right, they're doing that out of necessity.
Yeah.
So that's also a thing that we don't have an excuse, right? We're not exploiting cows for dairy because we need dairy. It's because we've chosen to do those things, right? So I would think, like, even if I imagine a situation where, let's say the lion had eaten all the zebra that they needed that day, but they choose to kill an extra baby zebra because cats like to play, right? And it's in their nature. Like, they just wanted to kill for, I don't know, some stimulation, but they were actually full. They didn't need to kill the extra zebra. I would say, like, even if that happens with lions, we can't use that as justification for us, because there's a thing called moral agency. Do you know what that means?
No, not really.
So moral agency means you have the capacity to make a moral judgment, right? So you know the difference, like right and from wrong. Yeah. So we don't expect the lion to have moral agency, and that's why we don't say that lion is morally wrong for killing the extra baby zebra when they're full, because they didn't need to, and why did they? That's morally wrong. We wouldn't say that, right? Because we don't expect them to have that judgment. The same, by the way, for babies in human species, like very young people, we say, okay, they haven't yet developed that sense of like right and wrong, so we wouldn't like blame them for making their mother late for work, because they're just like, we can't expect them to understand, right?
I understand.
Or people with dementia, like very old people. But the majority, like you and I, we have what's called moral agency. So that means that you're morally accountable when you pay to force pigs into gas chambers, or you pay to shoot cows in the head. You're morally accountable in a way that I don't expect of the wild animals. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely does make sense. And I like your point that we don't really have a necessity to eat meat anymore due to like the rapid, like, how do you say utveckling? Rapid expansion of farms. Like, I mean, humans could probably live off of greens forever at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could actually reduce the amount of farms. So this is, I'll show you a graph. So this is a study in 2018, which was published in Science, which is one of the most respected peer-reviewed scientific journals. And they looked at nearly 40,000 farms in 119 countries, and they discovered that the amount of land that we would need if everybody went vegan would be reduced by 75%. So we'd only need 25% of the current farmland, including less cropland than we do today, because you can see at the top here, animal feed. Almost half of the cropland that we're growing today is used to feed those animals that we're breeding into existence to kill, right? And then on top of that, we have the pasture land. That's like the areas for the cows to roam and so on. That's causing deforestation. So we're clearing a lot of land. In Europe, it's very ancient, so we don't think of it as deforestation like we maybe do in the Amazon, but it's the same. It's like for hundreds of years, it's just been like fields, so we just think, oh, that looks like nature, but it's not nature. That should all be rewilded. So in a vegan system, we could feed the whole population of all the humans, but do so with only a quarter of the land. And we could rewild 75% of the land. So that would be a benefit not just for the animals that are currently being bred into existence to be exploited and murdered, but also for the free animals, like the wild animals, right? We would be able to give back more land to those animals.
Yeah. About this, the animal feed isn't like a majority of what we feed animals quite not an inedible, but like not as nutrient dense as we humans need.
That's not true. So a lot of what we feed animals is of things very high in protein because we need to get all those amino acids into their bodies because they're slaughtered very young. So chickens and pigs, for example, they would be fed truckloads of soybeans, right? And the reason we choose those soybeans is because they're very high in protein. So they're going to make those all the muscle tissue get bigger and bigger, right? So it's not the idea that we're just feeding them stuff that we couldn't eat is not actually true.
Okay.
And actually in countries where people are struggling to feed their own human populations, we have a system where corrupt governments are actually exporting grains to feed rich people's farm animals in other countries before they're feeding their own citizens, right? So if you look at like world hunger, like how is it that we cannot feed 8 billion humans on the planet, yet somehow we can feed 90 billion farm animals? And that is a discrepancy. So this is not just an animal rights issue, it also becomes a human rights issue. So does this make you want to become vegan?
Well, you're proving your point quite well. Unfortunately, I don't really think I would be able to go vegan. I personally like the taste of meat, and I know that would probably like not make you angry, but quite irritated.
I mean, I've dealt with people in this situation before, but like if somebody was kicking a dog, and they said to you, "Oh, but I like kicking the dog. It gives me pleasure." What would you just say to them?
I'd probably think they're a psychopath.
Yeah. So I kind of think of that.
I'm a psychopath. Yeah. What you showed me actually like made me quite sad. But the experiences I have had with slaughtering animals when my grandpa used to slaughter them, it wasn't like peaceful, but they didn't seem afraid.
Okay, so to explain that process, what your grandfather did, how were they killed? So which animals are we talking about?
Sheep.
Okay, so the sheep are in front of us. Like, how would you kill them in a nice way?
What he did was he laid them down, and then he covered their eyes, and then he slit their throat.
Okay, so if we put like a hood over somebody's head and we lay them down and we slit their throat here in this square, do you think that would be a morally justified thing to do?
I don't think it's morally justified, but I don't think the sheep have the sentience nor the intelligence to be able to like indicate that they are going to be slaughtered.
Okay, so if we look at like other animals that we farm typically, like pigs, for example, it's been said that pigs' intelligence level can exceed a 3-year-old child. Right, so that's not actually true what you're saying. That's a common misconception through, again, propaganda from the industry that don't want you to care about the victims, right? But the reality is they do have sentience, they do have those others. And even if, right, let's imagine that we had low intelligent human beings, right? Maybe they had some mental disability. Do you think that if somebody has a mental disability, maybe they have the same intelligence level as the pig or the cow, would it be okay to round up those people with mental disabilities and force them into a slaughterhouse?
I do not think like rounding up mentally ill people into a slaughterhouse would be morally just.
So then the intelligence is not the reason.
But you were talking about pigs. Do we have any evidence that sheep are like intelligent enough to identify that they are going to be killed?
Okay, so I haven't got the data with me now, but what intelligence level, if you imagine you say they are intelligence level X, which is obviously lower than you think of humans, right?
Yes.
Let's imagine a human that is exactly the same level as that sheep that you choose where it is. Do you think maybe it's because of their mental impairments or whatever, if it's very low, right? Do you think it's justified to round up those individuals and put them into slaughterhouses?
No.
Okay, therefore, that's a consistency check. Therefore, it's not the reason.
But I value humans above animals. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay, but then you've made that clear, but then I'm looking for the reason, right? So you said it was because of intelligence. I've just disproved your point. So what else? Like, we can go through other areas. Like, what else is it then? Because it's not intelligence.
Yeah, but humans contribute positively to me, myself. They build all of the buildings around me. They make me go to school. They teach me things that I've never known before.
Okay, that's like a transactional idea of compassion. So what again, if we have some humans in society, maybe they cannot contribute, maybe some physical disabilities, right? So they cannot do anything. They can't build the buildings, they can't do all of those things. Do you think it's justified to round up those individuals and put them into slaughterhouses?
No, I do not think that.
Okay, then it's not that reason. We can go to the next one.
We don't eat them. That's the thing. We don't eat.
It's a hypothetical. I'm trying to check your consistency, and every time you give me a reason, I say, okay, let's check if this really is the reason, because we have to cross-check that to see if that stands up, and every time it doesn't stand up. So you see where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah, I see.
So this is it's an argument called name the trait, where you say what is the morally relevant difference between humans and other species, which means it's wrong to do these things to humans, but it's okay to do to the animals. And everything you come up with, we need to cross-check that to see if that's the real reason. And unfortunately, none of your arguments hold up.
But what you're doing is you're putting like animals on the same level as humans. I think humans contribute way more to our world than animals do. They don't do anything. They just eat, sleep, like go to the toilet. They do.
They do things for their own life. So the purpose of other animals is not to serve you with their body. So that's an exploitative mindset. People used to have that mindset in slavery, where they used to think that black people were there to serve white people, right? But what do? They do things to serve me. So you have an exploitative mindset when it comes to other animals.
Yeah, pretty much. But we have used animals for millions of years.
And we've been killing each other, we've been oppressing each other for millions of years. Yeah. So what if somebody said to you about misogyny, racism, homophobia, let's say we go back to the 1950s, right, where lots of those things were more prevalent, and they said, but we've been doing this for a long time, we have hundreds of years. Do you think that's a moral justification, doing something for a long time to continue tomorrow when you don't need to?
I personally, I think don't fix it if it ain't wrong.
So homophobia, racism, misogyny isn't wrong?
That is wrong, yes. I think oppressing people because who they love, how they look, what gender they are is
or what species they are.
Species they are. Look, the thing is, there's a difference between animals and humans.
Okay, but we try to look for there's differences between a cow and a horse, right?
Yeah.
There's differences between a pig and a chicken.
Yeah.
There's differences between a pig and a human.
Yeah.
So we all know there are differences between different species. That's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I asked you is what's the morally relevant difference, right? So then you need to pick something. And so far, all the things you picked don't hold up because we did a consistency check. Yeah. So you're kind of out of arguments now.
Yeah, to be honest, I am, but I just personally think us humans are better, and I know you're going to say, oh, that's not morally right.
That's a supremacist mindset. That's the same as the slave owner who said, I just think white people are better.
Yeah.
Or the man who thinks, like, I think men are better than women, so I can beat up my wife. Yeah. Like, this is an oppressor's mindset.
And I think I have some bias towards some, like, a specific group of animals. I personally would never eat a cat, but I would eat a chicken. Yeah, you see.
But do you think that that's based on logic or tradition?
I think it's based on logic.
Okay, so what is
it? Tradition, actually. Sorry, tradition. We don't traditionally eat cats. If I was born in China, I would probably be okay with eating cats.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? And that's why I'm vegan, right?
Yeah.
Because that is an inconsistency, right? So it's just because, we've arbitrarily decided that it's wrong to do, like, if somebody was kicking a dog in front of us right now, people would go nuts, right? They would be like, what the hell are you doing, right?
Yeah.
But if we put, like yourself, you pay for pigs in gas chambers, people all here, they'd be buying bacon. They don't think twice about forcing pigs in gas chambers. So there is a double standard in society.
Yeah.
So just the same as speciesism, racism, homophobia, all of those things, like speciesism is about challenging that double standard because it's not based on logic. As you say, it's based on tradition.
Yeah.
And people in times of slavery or misogyny or homophobia, they were also basing their decisions on tradition, which is not a logical way to base your... Otherwise, you could just say, like, if you took your logic, you would have stood with your arguments against every justice movement in history.
Yeah.
Because you would have, all of those justice movements, right, they were about saying, okay, we had this thing that's traditional that people have been doing, but let's change it, right, because we don't need to tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if someone with your mindset would have said, hey, but we've always been doing it.
Yeah, we wouldn't have all these buildings around us. People breaking, like, the norm is the reason why we have so many technological advancements.
Are you breaking the norm by not being vegan?
No, I'm definitely not breaking the norm, but I think I'm okay with buying, like, a piece of chicken at a supermarket because I don't really see what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm okay with that ignorance.
Okay, so if it was humans, let's say that if you're okay with ignorance, so let's say humans were being murdered for you, but it was happening behind closed doors, so you didn't see it, would that make it okay?
If I didn't know, let's just say the chicken is actually human.
You know it's happening, but you can't see it. The same as with the chicken. You know the chickens are being slaughtered, but they're done like in a concrete room somewhere you can't see it. Let's imagine the same scenario with humans. So you know the humans are being killed and you're paying for it to happen, but you can't see it. Would that make it morally justified?
Do you want me to be honest, like how I would feel about it, or just like
This whole conversation is about you being honest. Yeah.
I would probably be okay with it.
Okay, that's shocking. Like, so you don't even believe in human rights?
I believe in human rights for everyone, but
Well, not for the ones that are being murdered in that concrete room.
yeah, but that's because it's benefiting me. I will always put myself above other people. And I know that.
But isn't that the argument of like the white supremacists who wanted free labor, who say, okay, I'm okay with slavery because it's benefiting me? Like every injustice in history, whether it's like men dominating women in the workplace who get a promotion or get paid more, like it is beneficial to say, oh, only the dominant group get these benefits, right? And we get to oppress the weaker group, right? If we honestly use that argument to say, oh, as long as this oppression benefits the oppressors, then go ahead, that would be ridiculous. Like you would not be able to argue against any progress in society.
Yeah, and I know I'm quite like naive and probably thinking self-centeredly, but meat's all I've known all my life, and I don't think I'll ever be able to give it up.
I mean, that's the same as the person who says, like, I've only known misogyny my whole life. It's an appeal to tradition fallacy.
Let's just say this: the slave owner, he births a son, and the son grows up his whole life thinking that owning a slave is okay. Do we blame him, or do we blame the people that have set the norm that owning a slave is okay?
I think we can expect him to change if we educate about what the victims are. So, like, ignorance, I think, is excusable. Like, lots of people are brought up in ignorance, but I've explained these things to you.
Yeah.
And if after these types of conversations, right, where you explain, you see the videos, you look at the victims, and you still say, I don't care, to me, if we take that equivalent and we look at the person who's grown up with slavery and they said, oh, I understand all the stuff, it's horrible, but I just don't care, I think that's morally repugnant.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I completely agree with you. Personally, I've been wanting to go vegetarian, but unfortunately my family buys a lot of meat since it's cheaper in the grocery stores than
the meat's actually more expensive. So you can buy like lentils, chickpeas, rice, beans, they're all the cheapest foods.
I also think it's the convenience aspect of it. I think like buying a complete pack of chicken legs, for example, and just grilling them is more convenient.
It's not convenient for the chickens being murdered.
No, exactly, and that's the problem I've been wanting to be.
So it's convenient for the white person to have free labor from the slaves, right?
Yeah.
Say, oh, it's just more convenient for me.
Yeah.
That's not a justification.
Yeah.
So oppression is never justified because, oh, well, as long as you can explain some benefits, like, or it's convenient, then go ahead. Like, or the rapist wants to rape women. Oh, it's just easier because I don't want to have to go through dating and everything. It's like, oh, it's such a hassle. It's just more convenient for me to rape people. Like, what would you say to that?
I think it's deplorable, like rapists going around saying, oh, I can rape people because I don't want to date them. I just want it quick,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the animals that you're consuming, they've also been raped, right, to make them pregnant.
Yeah. And I don't really have an argument. I guess it kind of makes me sad thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, then, if it makes you sad, I would encourage you to stop supporting it, right? So every day that you're not vegan, there are animals being shot in the head for you.
But then I think like they're still gonna die, so why not eat them? But then I know if I think like that, everyone else is thinking like that.
Yeah, that's supply and demand, right? So that's not true. So if imagine the same situation with dogs or humans, and people have that attitude, oh, it's going to happen anyway. It doesn't work like that. The more people that support it, so when you put your money down in the supermarket and you say, yes, I want to buy some dead pigs, what do? They breed more pigs to kill, right? So right now in the world, 60% of all mammals on Earth are now livestock. Do you know how many wild animals there are? What percentage of the mammals on Earth are wild?
No.
Have a guess.
You said 60%.
So 60% of the livestock?
Yeah.
So of all mammals, right, this is biomass distribution. What percentage do you think are the wild animals?
Like 20?
4%.
4%?
So that's including the elephants, the tigers, all of the wild mammals, sorry. And if we look at birds, 70% of all birds on Earth are now chickens and other farmed poultry. So we're breeding huge numbers of these animals into existence because people want to buy their dead bodies. So it's not like, oh, if I didn't pay for it, they would do it anyway. The reason they're doing this is because there are so many people. It's like voting, right? So all our individual choices, they add up. So your choice matters.
Yeah, I was going to use like the argument that cows fart out methane, and methane is bad for the environment, but if we stop breeding cows, then they won't release methane.
Yeah. So there'll be less cows because we won't be breeding so many. Yeah. All right.
Well, the thing I'm like contemplating now is it bad to be vegetarian or is it better to be vegan? Like, is there a moral difference between being vegetarian, like still drinking milk and still eating eggs, or just eating complete?
So let me show you the egg industry, and then rather than me telling you, you can make up your own mind, okay? So this is, how much do you know about the egg industry?
Not a lot. All I know that my grandpa, he had a few chickens and they just lived in like, not a cage, but like they...
So you know that only females lay eggs, right?
Yeah.
So you know that we have different breeds of chickens.
Yeah.
Some chickens called broilers, they're used for meat, so they grow very fast. And then we have others, these are the egg-laying hens, or the egg-laying breeds of chickens. So they are used for laying eggs. So obviously if you're male, what happens to you in the egg industry? So they're the breed that is used for laying eggs, but they can't lay because they're boys.
Yeah.
So on their first day of life, they will be separated as they hatch into boys and girls, right? So they have a slightly different marking that they've bred, the feathers on the top of the head, so they can divide them into male and female. And all of the males are not useful. So basically what happens is they'd be dropped off a conveyor belt and they'd be macerated. Another method is putting them into gas chambers. So they put them in these plastic trays and then basically, gas them to death. So the reason we do that, and this is organic, free-range eggs, we kill around 7 billion day-old male chicks every year. So bearing in mind the human population on the planet is 8 billion, it's like doing that like every year, like wiping out that number of individuals. How does this make you feel?
I mean, I really love animals, and this is really sad to see. It kind of reminds me of the Holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's happening to them, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Fully conscious. And this is organic, free-range eggs. So that's why I wouldn't encourage people to go vegetarian. I would encourage them to go vegan.
Personally, I think if you're going to kill an animal and eat it, you should make it quick, not like...
I mean, that's quick.
Yeah,
but I don't think the problem is, again, we're getting back to like method. So the problem is not method, right? So
it
if we
is
say
the
about
killing
humans,
itself.
we say, okay, as long as you shoot the human in the back of the head and they don't see it coming, like we would never say, oh, that's okay then, right? We'd say just stop doing it when you don't need to.
Yeah.
And the same logic applies for them.
When you don't need to, that I was going to say, what if like in a time of crisis, all you have is livestock?
Right?
Yeah, I understand.
So the other thing to mention is vegetarianism is only concerned with food, whereas veganism is a lifestyle, so it's not just about food. Animals are exploited in so many different industries. So whether it's choosing sun cream or whether it's the types of shoes that we wear or all of those things, we are trying to avoid as best as we can using other animals. So it doesn't matter if it's for the leather or it's for a burger or it's for, going to a zoo. Like we would avoid exploiting and oppressing other animals.
But
vegetarians don't do that.
Yeah, don't vegan, like, isn't vegan food sprayed with a bunch of pesticides? And once like you take the crops, don't all the insects and animals on it die?
I mean, we can get, there's no such thing as just vegan crops. I mean, we probably the same crops that you're eating, we just eat more of the plant foods.
Yeah.
But if we go back to this graph and we said, okay, let's imagine that you're concerned about those insects and you say, oh, this is terrible that they're spraying these. I mean, we could look at different farming methods, but even if we just keep the same farming methods we have today, if you look at this graph, we would actually need to do less harvesting of crops and less spraying of those pesticides, right? Because in the vegan system, we don't need as much crop land. We don't need as many crops, right? So even by those metrics, right? Even if you didn't care about the cows and the pigs and the chickens and you only cared about the insects, veganism would still be the solution to minimize.
Yeah, but that's if the entire society became...
No, even if one. So the reason this is a quarter is because as a vegan, the amount of land that I need is 25%, right? Versus a standard meat eater. So of course this scales up to be this in terms of the land, but even as an individual, each of us individual, we're using more land. So if you're saying like, oh, you care about the insects, it's not like this only happens because it's everyone. Each of us contributes to that, right? So if you wanted to minimize the amount of land you personally are responsible for, veganism would be the solution.
But won't the crops still be sprayed even though I turn vegan? Because I think they will still be sprayed.
I mean, this is the argument about wouldn't the pig still be slaughtered even though you're vegan? So less of it would happen, right? So it's the same logic. It's supply and demand, right? So as we said, like, yes, some of them will be done, right? but it's going to be minimizing that. So if you genuinely cared about that, the solution should be vegan.
But isn't veganism about like not withholding, but holding life and not killing any animals, or is it okay to kill a few insects to get to not eat an entire pig?
So I would say that a bit like human rights, right?
Yeah.
If you live in a house, probably if you connect the supply chain of the supplier and then the supplier's supplier, and then maybe there's some like concrete or steel supplier in another country far away, you might find human rights abuses where maybe even humans were being killed for the house that you're living in and you support or you pay rent or you buy, right? But we would not say that, oh, because of that it's okay to go out and kill humans, right? I think if we value human rights, we say let's do the best that we can, right? Let's avoid as much as possible. And that's what veganism is. Not a solution where we can claim to, like, if I walk down the street I don't step on an ant, right?
Yeah.
But what it does mean is just because somebody steps on an ant, that doesn't give you the justification to beat up a dog with a baseball bat, right?
But do you value like a pig, for example, more than you value do you value a pig's life more than you value a few, like a dung beetle, for example, or an ant colony?
I might do. I don't know about that question, but like I think probably because I am a mammal and a pig is a mammal, I might find it easier to empathize with them.
Yeah.
But as I said to you, even if we want to minimize the deaths of those insects, veganism is still the solution. So it doesn't worry me about my decision to go vegan, because even if I didn't care about the pigs and I only cared about the insects, it would still be better to be vegan, right? So I think you don't need to worry about those things in order to go vegan. It's not really a barrier to the logic of veganism.
Okay, well, thank you. Those are all my questions. You
all right.
cleared it up quite well.
I hope you go vegan then.
I'll start off with vegetarianism, and I'll try to see.
Think about the chicks that I showed you, because that's the egg industry. That's what vegetarians pay for.
What about honey then? Is honey?
Honey is also terrible, right? So
yeah, and I've seen the honey industry as well.
Yeah, they're also they kill the drones, are the names of the males, because they need to extract the semen. They also have problems where diseases are being spread from the honeybees to the wild bee populations, because we're breeding so many honeybees. And that's also causing competition for wildflower resources. So the native wild bees populations are crashing and they're dying because there's too many honeybees like taking up all the food resources.
That's why I buy like locally grown.
Local doesn't mean jack shit.
But my church actually has like a bee.
Yeah, it's worse. So the best thing for the bees, right? People think like, oh, having a hive is good for the bees. It's not. There's a documentary you can watch. I think it's produced by a German news company. It's called "We're Saving the Wrong Bees," because there are tens and thousands of different bees, right?
Yeah.
And we have honeybees, which we exploit for honey.
Yeah.
But what we're doing, it's a bit like the cows, right? We've chosen those species because we can exploit them, and we make loads of honeybees. So honeybees are not endangered. There's loads of them. They're overpopulated, right? So when we say, oh, there's a problem with the bees or there's not enough bees, we're talking about the critical wild bees. And actually, when you introduce lots of honeybees to an area, when there's already lots of concrete, like look around here, there's limited wildflowers, which are their food. And if you introduce honeybees, it means there's not enough food for the native wild bees. So the best thing you can do is rewilding, which is what happens here. So if we get rid of all of this land and we could rewild all of this, that would be amazing for insects, right? But also, even just on an individual level, if you have a balcony or a bit of land of your church, the best thing is to let that land rewild. So you could also, even to help it along, you can buy like wildflower seeds and sprinkle them. That's the best way to help the bees, not having honeybees where they're exploited.
How much would it cost to to go from this to this?
I mean, do you mean the cost of rewilding, or what do you mean? The good thing about rewilding is it's basically, it seems like very complicated, but it's basically just not doing anything. So rewilding means leaving the land the fuck alone, right? And what happens is all the plants, everything starts to reclaim that land. The wild habitats for the smaller animals, they also have more space, so they would maybe increase, and now their numbers are threatened, so they maybe start to bounce back, those species. So it's actually a lot more effort what we're doing today, and a lot more expensive what we're doing today in using all of that land, the machinery involved with deforestation, plowing fields, all of those things. So the cost of doing all of this would be reduced by a vegan system.
Wouldn't we have to demolish like the farms and stuff, or could you just leave it alone and like the grass would grow on the concrete?
I mean, when we're talking about, so this pasture land, a lot of these are farms, right? But the amount of land there that is filled with buildings is very little, right? So this is all like, imagine land for the cows to graze or the sheep to graze, right? So that's the huge amounts of land that animal agriculture is using. So even if we kept those buildings, but we allowed all of the land that they're currently having their sheep and cows on, if we let that land rewild, that would be a huge benefit, and that's what this graph is showing.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
All right, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You're really educated, man. Thank
Yeah,
you. What
I
was your
appreciate
name
it.
again?
Giles.
Giles. Nice
Yeah,
to meet you. Where
nice to
are
meet
you
you.
from?
I'm from the UK.
UK.
Yeah.
So nice to meet you.
All right, I encourage you to go vegan.